Hello, loves. Your girl Carrie here. So, yesterday I shared with you about narcissistic abuse, pretty much what it entails and things about it. Now, today I want to talk to you about one thing that I had asked myself coming out of my narcissistic abusive relationship, and that was, how did I get there? I remember doing so much like self sabotage and thinking to myself, at that point in time, I owned two businesses. I lived on my own. I was a single mother. I was never struggling. I worked for everything I had. I literally was excelling in life. I was achieving in life. And, I have a lot of education under my belt. It's not like I'm like some moronic person. And now I will say, like, I've heard the word narcissism in my life, and I've heard bits and pieces of people's stories, but never really what a narcissist was or who, is a narcissist, or never experienced a narcissist. And I was married prior to my narcissist for 10 years to a police officer. Like, I never had any trauma or chaos. When I fell victim to a narcissist, I thought, this is crazy, because I'm like, how did this happen? So that's something that I want to share with you. I want to share with you how I discovered how I even entertained a narcissist to begin with. Now, I will say before I begin, this is my story. I'm giving this to you on a survivor aspect. This is not for you to take as any kind of medical or professional advice or anything in that nature. I'm literally telling you what worked for me, what I discovered, and hopefully if this message is for you and there's a way in here that it resonates with you, I hope that maybe giving you my story will put off some light bulbs and give you some ideas of how to start healing or how to start moving forward, and things to maybe recognize, so that if you're anything like me, I wanted to make sure that I was like reading every book, every podcast. I went on every single social media type like outlet and like just different forums and groups, because I was like, I never want to have this kind of person in my life again. So like, what do I need to do to change whatever of how I saw this person as a good person to begin with? And so that's how I discovered what I'm about to share with you. So as I said, this is like survivor to survivor, a healed individual to a healed individual, or someone healing, in hope that it resonates with you. So as I shared in my previous video about narcissistic personality disorder, if you haven't watched it, feel free to go back and watch it to what I'm referencing. But one thing I had stated is that as someone who is coming out of a narcissistic relationship, you truly do need to get psychiatric help, because your brain is so chemically imbalanced. It's literally coming out of an active addiction. So just like someone that does drugs and their brain becomes chemically imbalanced because it's obviously trying to function off of the drugs that the person is doing, that is the same thing as coming out of narcissistic abuse. So I went to a therapist, and this was prior to me even going into the education field and then going into narcissism, what I do now day to day. So this was me going in as just a normal human being who has never been in this situation. And so I went to the therapist because I knew I needed medication. I needed something to like get me out of wanting to go back, like get me out of this trauma bond addiction, because I couldn't do it anymore. I was literally dying. And when I had gone to her, of course, then they have you go see a counselor and so forth. And so I'll never forget, because the first few times that I saw this counselor, she, like, here I am wanting help to stay away from this person who's abusing me, and, why I keep going back, and like basically to save me from this trauma bond. And she would keep asking me about my childhood. And so I remember like the third or fourth session, I said to myself, I'm like, if I walk in there and she asks me about my childhood again, I'm going to say something to her. So sure enough, it was like the third or fourth session. And so she's like, so let's talk about your childhood again. And I remember looking at her and being like, ma'am, I know you have like protocols and you probably have to do so many stages and whatever to figure out what's going on in my brain. And I'm not trying to tell you to do your, how to do your job or what to do. I'm like, but I'm not here to talk about my childhood. Like, the things that happened in my childhood, I don't acknowledge them anymore. Like, that was 35 plus years ago. At that time I was like 40. So I was like, that was stuff that happened in my, in my past. And I was like, I'm here for a psychopath that is literally going to kill me, and I need help, like from saving me from this psychopath. And I'll never forget, because she looked me dead in the eye and she was like, ma'am, that is the whole entire reason that you entertained the narcissist to begin with. And I just looked at her like, what? So she says, yes, Carrie, your childhood is the reason that you entertained this narcissist. And I was like, so for myself to try and keep this at a minimal, basically my mother and father married very young. My dad became an adulterer. They were going through active divorce. My mom got pregnant with me. So pretty much my dad was there when I was born and then off in his mistress life and so forth. So I basically have abandonment issues, abandonment wounds from a father. But then my mother also, who was very codependent and couldn't do life by herself because she had counted on my father, and at that point in time, that was where the father was working and the mother stayed home with the kids, kind of, lifestyles that used to be. So my mom married right away to fall into her codependency of not being able to do life herself. And that man was a drug user, an alcoholic, and a child abuser. So coming out of abandonment, I went right into childhood abuse. Long story short, I was never shown love. And when they say that love is a language, it truly is a language. And just like your parents taught you the language you speak, let's say English, they taught you the love language as well. So the environments that you grew up in are exactly how you learned love. So if you were raised in chaos and trauma, someone that was an active addict, abuse, any of those things, even abandonment. A lot of us don't even know we have abandonment issues because a lot of people that I even see personally myself, now that I am specialized in this, they will say to me, like, my parents actually they're still married, like they were always married. And we come from a generation where the father was the worker and the mother stayed home. That is actually abandonment issues because your father wasn't there when you had your special moments or your milestones, or, even if they travel a lot for work and they're not home all the time. That is abandonment issues because you don't have that loving emotion and affection and that connection with both parents if that was your lifestyle. So that actually gives us abandonment issues and abandonment wounds from, let's say our father who was never around. Even though he would come home at night for dinner, if your father was out all day working, came home, ate dinner, and everyone went to bed, you're not really building a relationship with him. He's basically just there as a showpiece, as a decoration, because he could never come to whatever milestones that, you had. So a lot of people don't even realize that we have abandonment issues, let alone if you did actually come from toxicity like myself, someone that had abandonment or a real abandonment or, abuse and so forth. So our brain is literally the steering wheel to our entire life. What we learn as our beliefs, our traditions, our experiences, all of that gives pattern to our brain, and that is how our brain knows how to function. Our brain doesn't actually know good versus bad or right versus wrong. What it thinks is right or wrong or good or bad is what you teach it to be those things. So if you are raised in toxicity, you are associating that with love. You are associating chaos and commotion and sacrifice as a way of love. Now, fast forward, you become an adult. Now, for me, of course, I knew that abuse wasn't something that I would ever do to my own children or someone else. So I knew I would never lay my hands on someone because that was something that traumatized me. But I also went and wanted to be that people pleaser and that overly lover to other people because I knew the pain that I felt as a child being abused. So I had basically, my heartstrings were pulled to people that had troubled lives or lived in troubled lives or had problems or issues. Like I basically wanted to be the savior, the changer, the one to make their pain go away. because I never wanted someone to feel that pain and suffering that I did myself, knowing of how it felt. Every time I describe this, I just think of Beauty and the Beast. You know, how Belle was just so loving and the Beast was just such a monster. That was basically how I felt in the relationships that I've had. Like I played a lot of sports in high school, so I went with the jocks and, and they were the jerks and, just all of that. Like I always veered towards the jerk men basically because of the fact that I wanted to be the Belle of the Beauty and the Beast. You know what I mean? And now to piggyback off that, since we were raised in these environments where the fathers provided and the mothers stayed home and took care of the children, many men have now grown into grown men who think that their worth and value is in what they provide. So a lot of individuals, a lot of men find themselves with toxic and narcissistic women because the narcissistic woman is looking for supply, just like a narcissistic man does. You are not a physical person. You are an entity. You are as worth what you provide. If your vault is holding a mansion and a Ferrari and you're whining and dining the woman, the narcissist is looking at that as a freaking gold mine, where the man is looking at it as in he's providing the world for his woman. And then when the man loses his job or something happens or the man gets hurt or put in whatever scenario, and the woman leaves because now she's doing the discard because she's a narcissist, right? So she's got to go on to new supply. Clearly, the man is upset thinking like, I gave this woman my life. Like, how could she do this to me? Like, I gave her everything. So the man is now feeling that he is worthless, that he is worth nothing. When the truth is, everything he provided and everything he did was never the value of who he was to begin with. His worth and value isn't what he gives. His worth and value is who he is. And this also works likewise with a woman. If the woman's the one doing all the providing, and then when the supply runs out and the narcissist runs out because he does the discard, and has to go on to new supply for someone to provide, you feel the same way. And the reason that this even happens is because we, as logical thinkers and of non-narcissistic individuals, we think, we have empathy. We think with our minds and our hearts and just logically as human beings. Well, as a narcissist, there is no empathy. There is no connection, no love. Like, you are as good as your supply. You provide them a house, that's why they want to be with you. You provide them, the car payments or the bills, you pay their bills, whatever it is, that's basically why they're with you, why they're still there. You wine and dine them, you bring them on trips. If you are entertaining and providing and giving the supply, they are siphoning that supply. That's just it. So to answer the overall question, why did I even entertain this narcissist to begin with? It's because it is the love language that you know, the love language that you speak. If you were raised in toxicity, you are going to entertain toxic individuals because the mind is of pattern. So the mind seeks to wander what it knows. So if it knows love as sacrifice, of suffrage, of toxic, of chaos, commotion, that is the way you interpret love. Also, as humans, we usually want something we don't have. You want brown hair, but yet you're a blonde. You want to be skinny, but you're overweight. Like, we always seek to wander things that we don't have. So for myself, because I never had that father figure who was supposed to love me first and show me what love is and set the bar of what acceptance that love is and what a woman deserves and so forth, I always seeked what I didn't have. I always, it was almost like I was blind looking for love because I didn't really know what love was. I only knew the sacrifice and stuff that I gave, and went through, that was supposed to be love. That was what my parents showed me that love was. So I entertained and wanted, men, and I fell on codependency because my mother showed me codependency, but also because I always seeked that love from a man that I never knew. And I clearly didn't know my worth and value because no one showed me my worth and value. No one set that bar. No one set that tone. No one, taught me that language. So that was another thing. I settled for what I knew: toxicity, chaos, commotion. That was all I knew love to be. So how do we change all this? That's where healing comes in. You have to go to the core of the issue. If you had the same childhood that I had, that is your issue. You are literally, that's the root cause of the problem. The narcissist is just the solution. The narcissist and toxic individuals is the solution because that's all you know. The problem is the core, what you were taught love to be, what you see your worth and value in. Is it in things? Is it in desires outside of yourself? Or is it internally? You have to do the internal work and love yourself first. You need to set that bar and set that tone and give that love language to yourself first. So that way you understand and you know, and when you go out, you wouldn't even entertain a narcissist anymore because you know your worth and value is way up here and your standards are way up here. It's almost like going outside now, you know for sure you would never go to the local garbage can and go pick up a homeless person because you know your worth and value is higher than a homeless person, right? It's like that same structure. Once you put yourself up here and you learn the true language of love, that it's conditioned, it's not conditioned, it's unconditional, it's not sacrificial. You don't need to sacrifice anything, especially your own self, to be loved. You don't have to go through trauma and chaos and confusion. Like, you can be in peace, and you know that what's for you is going to always, it's going to fit like a puzzle piece. If someone is trying to change you, that person is not for you. They don't, your tribe always knows your vibe. So you don't have to change a thing. The people that are for you in your life, they are equal to you. Like, they like the same things. They do the same things. So you would never have to change yourself because they have the same interests as you. It's almost like you guys are all twins, you're all mimicking the same thing. And that's what you have to get to the core of. You have to get to the core of the love language that you know and understand that that was what love was not, and learn what love truly is. And let me tell you this, you guys, as I said in the beginning of this video, I was married for 10 years. I divorced my ex-husband because I didn't feel loved from him. I felt like I was like pulling, yearning for his love, and he was like looking at me like, what are you talking about? I'm doing everything I can. Like, we didn't speak the same love language. And the reason I didn't feel loved is because I wasn't healed. This was before my narcissist and obviously me going, to therapy. He was like boring to me. He was like, I didn't feel his love language because the only love I knew was chaos and toxicity and drama and so forth. And he was none of those. So I felt that we just didn't click. There was just no love. I felt like he was just a good friend, no different than like a girlfriend that I hang out with, every other weekend or something. So that is why healing is so imperative. Otherwise, again, our brains are patterns, and all you are going to do is fall into a whole same pattern. So you can leave a narcissist, but if you don't do the healing and you don't get to the core of the love language that you know and interpret, you are going to just fall into another narcissistic relationship. You are going to fall into another toxic relationship. You are going to entertain the love that you know and the toxicity that you know, because your brain only knows that as the pattern of love. You have to train yourself, and you have to fill your own cup with true love so that you could give it to another, and then also so that you could obtain it. So if you're sitting here going, all I find is these jerks, it's all the same, jerk people, the dating pool is so horrific. No, the dating pool is fucking lazy. They don't want to do the work to see the love that they're misinterpreting. And since everything is a convenience, everyone wants to live in this convenient world as if someone's going to magically heal you, and it doesn't work that way. You will never have convenience for commitment, period. Love is a commitment, and there is work that you have to do to be loved and to give love. And if you aren't going to do that and you're waiting for a magical convenience, you're going to fucking keep getting the same asshole people in your life over and over again, because your brain, that's the pattern it knows. And now we all know as survivors what gaslighting is, and this is not to gaslight you, but the whole time you're wanting that narcissist to take accountability, which they don't do, But this is when it's your time to take accountability. It's your time to be accountable, to understand that you had the wrong interpretation of love. And now it's time that you know what love truly is. And this is not to bypass a narcissist and what they did for you, to you and so forth. That is literally an abuser, and that there's zero excuses for someone that treats someone so poorly. But at the same perspective, where the accountability comes in for you is the fact that you need to be accountable now for your healing, and you need to be accountable to your understanding, to learning what love truly is, so that you can find that true love, that authentic love, not a fake facade of love and devalue. And I'm going to also tell you right now, too, if you jump into another relationship coming out of this narcissistic one, you are falling into your codependency. That person is not any better, or they're not the love of your life, or whatever the case may be that you think that this person is. This is you and your codependency. You have been doing life for someone else because that narcissist, you've been running circles around and being codependent on what they want and their life and their aspect and all of this, because God forbid you had your own life. You have to obviously maintain, you don't even know your own identity at this point. So if you fall into another relationship without doing the healing and finding out who you truly are, since you have lived a life by what that person told you are just going to end up in another toxic relationship and or marriage or whatever you end up doing. So please do the work. You are worth a commitment. You are worth real, true love. But you are not going to find it if you just keep going into the cycle. You can break out of a narcissistic relationship, but if you just jump into another one, you didn't break any cycle. You are literally repeating the same pattern. And I'm going to tell you this, any one that comes out of a narcissistic relationship, marriage, whatever you want to call it, and they do the work, what you thought that they were and what you entertained will literally make you sick, because you will see how degrading and devaluing you were to yourself. At the end of the day, the narcissist was a blessing, because this is now your opportunity to start fresh and to start realizing who you truly are and living in your authentic life and who you were meant for, your purpose, your mission, and starting with a foundation of God and faith, and finding yourself, true love within yourself, not outside of you. Anything outside of you, any other person, any other thing, all of that is just desires. It's all temporary. The only thing that is permanent is yourself. You are living with your own self for your entire experience here in this world. Make sure that you take care of yourself, because that is true love and what matters most.